Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guest with your host, Christina Nitchman.
Get ready and start your engines for our 4th annual Aviation Month at Savvy Central Radio. Hello everyone and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guest today is Abingdon Welch, CEO and founder of the Abingdon Company. The Abingdon Company began producing boutique high-end timepieces for aviators and avid travelers since 2007. Abingdon followed her dreams and created a successful business, earned her pilot license, became a certified flight instructor, scuba diver, and even starred in the hit TV reality show Flying Wild Alaska. Today, Abingdon joins us to share exciting updates at the Abingdon Company and impart some invaluable nuggets of business wisdom. To find out more about Abingdon and her company, go to theabingdonco.com. Hi, Abingdon. Welcome back to Savvy Central Radio for our 4th annual Aviation Month this year. You've had some major accomplishments at your wonderful company, Abingdon Company. But before we go there, share with our audience who might not be familiar with you from our past interviews a little bit about your background and what led you to creating your business, Abingdon Company.
Absolutely. It's great to be talking with you again, Christina. I always love coming onto your show. I've been flying since 2006. I am most recently an ATP, Airline Transport Pilot rated pilot. So I'm very excited about that. Woohoo! And just got that down in the last month. And I'm about 2,000 hours. I ferry airplanes internationally. I was on the TV show Flying Wild Alaska as Ariel Tweedo's flight instructor. A lot of people remember me from that. I'm one of the newest elected board members for the Women in Aviation organization. And I am a flight instructor and airline pilot. And I started a little company called the Abingdon Company, which is aviation, travel, and divers watches for women, basically women who do super adventurous adrenaline junkie things. And that's been around now for almost 9 years. So I got into it because I wanted a watch when I was learning how to fly. They just didn't really have anything made for women at the time. So I decided to do something about that.
Yeah. And recently, as you did mention briefly, that you also brought into existence, you want to hit all of the extreme sports. So you brought out diving watches for women, which they didn't have a lot of selection for women. So you're now bringing a bigger selection, not only for aviation and enthusiasts and women who are in aviation, but all now divers. And now you're also going to look at other sports, correct?
Absolutely. I want to bring out some tactical watches for outdoors women, for hunters, for even fighters, mixed martial arts, sports watches, anything that really women are a part of, but they seem to be the minority in. I would love to bring out more watches for those types of women, even into the racing, NASCAR, Formula One, Indy watches. I think that'd be really, really fun. So yeah, you'll definitely see the growth slowly going. So it's good.
Yeah, and I've loved the new Marina and Elise and Catherine that just came out this year. You did 3 new designs in 1 year.
I know, it's insane. Yeah, no,
who does that?
Yeah, I can't believe that we actually came out with 3 watches successfully. It's something that we've never done before because, you know, most watch companies and honestly most companies that offer a product, there's so much research and development done before they introduce it publicly. And we had been doing the same thing, but it just happened to, be that in order to grow the company, the timing needed to happen where we really needed to expand. And I don't know if I should tell you this. I think I can talk about this now that it's over.
Tell me.
But in June 2010, Christina, this is the first time I'm publicly announcing this. So I got onto Shark Tank. And nobody knows this, but you can see me in season 6, episode 1. And I am in the intro to the show where it talks about how it brings out entrepreneurs and everything. So basically what happens at Shark Tank is they film 180 episodes and they air 160. And I was one of the 20 that didn't get aired. Can you believe that? So Yeah, I know. So,
No.
but I went through, did the whole process, be happy to talk about it with you one-on-one or whoever wants to ask me questions. I won't go into the details now, but basically through that experience, it really showed where the company needs to grow. So that's one of the reasons for the huge amount of growth. And I think I said 2010. I did this in 2013. So this was just, I filmed in 2013 for the season in 2014. So it was just last year's season that I was supposed to be aired on Shark Tank. But anyway, that experience really taught me a lot about how to grow my business, what needs to happen in order for it to grow. And that's one of the main reasons why we release 3 watches in 1 year as opposed to 1 every couple years. That's my big confession.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you confessed it, because a lot of business owners don't make it to the 6th year. You're now in 6 years, right? You're 6 years growing and expanding.
8 years.
8 years. Oh my gosh. Most companies don't make it past 5. You made it to 8 and you're growing and expanding. Now, one thing that many business owners do is they get stuck on a particular product, service, information, and they don't really delve or expand. From your experiences on Shark Tank and with your own company expanding so much, especially in the past year, what would be your advice for anyone who's kind of just stuck in the rut and their company's not going anywhere?
You know, it was me about a year and a half ago, right before I got the call from the producers from Shark Tank that said, you know, you've been chosen to be on Shark Tank. And I was just kind of going through the motions of the business, and it was operating fine. Everything was just doing okay, but it wasn't really growing. It was just sustaining. It was just being. And putting it out there on Shark Tank, and really I've always tried, you know, after flying Wild Alaska, you really understand the power of television and media. And you know, I've always tried to get the company more exposure in as many guerrilla marketing or inexpensive ways as possible. And so applying for television shows is free and it has great exposure. And so when I got that, it was so amazing to just start asking different types of business people, mentors that I have. One in particular he's a savant when it comes to mergers and acquisitions with companies. So he gave me incredible advice because the opportunity for a shark to buy my company was very real, because that happens all the time on the show. So I had to prepare. You know, he really looked at my company and said, well, I were looking to acquire your company. This is what I'd look for. And I had never really even thought of those questions before. So it was such a blessing in disguise, even though I didn't get aired on the show. It was such a blessing to just get this knowledge and to think about my company in a different way, because had I not, I would have just continued with the motions.
That is a really good point to make, because I think all of us, and it's interesting, a lot of my business owner friends, they end up using their company kind of like they were working as an employee. You start kind of go through the motions of, okay, now I got everything on a plane of existence, it's moving forward, but then you just get stuck in a rut. You're really not moving or growing. And as one of my mentors always says, if you're not growing in your business, you're dying, because it needs to be continually expanding, not just staying still.
Exactly.
So what would you say to someone who's stuck in a rut? How do they even get started to look at expanding?
Yeah, definitely. One of the main questions that really kind of turned the tables for me was if I were to sell the business. And how would I make it attractive in order to sell it? And who would I want to sell it to? And those are those can be very tough questions, because, you know, some companies, they just want to get bought. Maybe not, they don't care who buys them. They just want to get bought. That's the purpose of them having the business, in order to sell it in the future. Others, they want their baby to grow and under the guise of a different group. So they would want to sell to somebody within their industry, maybe to help grow the business. I'm definitely more in that camp than in just, okay, I don't care what happens after I sell the company. I'm more of the mindset, I really want the company to continue operating, because I think it's really important that there are products out there for women. And because there just was a need, you know, I mean, we talked about this on previous shows, that people start businesses for several reasons. One of them, there's a need for the product. So ask yourself that question, you know, what's the end goal of the business? And are you achieving that? Are you working towards that? If you're not, then what do you need to change in order to do that? So when I was asked the question, how do you want to sell your business if you were given that opportunity? And I said, well, I want to sell it to a company that would want to grow the business. And they said, okay, well, is that attractive for them right now? And I said, well, no, we only offer aviation watches. We need to offer more watches for other groups and become a bigger group. There's only 50,000, it's not 50,000, it's more than that, but there's not that many women pilots. We all know it's 6% of the industry, but that's a very small market to sell a product to. And so when you have over 3 million female divers, and when you have, women who do all these other things, I mean, you look at the shooting and outdoors women, the gun owners, women are the largest growing group in that industry out of any of these high price point entry industries like diving, flying, gun ownership, career equestrian, all those things. Out of all of those industries, women are just skyrocketing in numbers in the outdoorsman and shooting industries. There's more women owning guns now than there have been it's more than doubled in the past decade. So why not offer more products for them? Because all they're being offered is the same stuff that we were in aviation, men's stuff. So that's really what kind of lit the fire and was the catalyst, was saying, oh, okay, that's the question. And this is the answer. Let's work towards that. Let's get there.
Yeah. And what I'm getting from this is that you had to take a really deep look, and maybe an uncomfortable look, when you got some of these questions at first. And because I hear from people, whatever their product, service, or information is, their baby is the most perfect thing. I love it. It's amazing. Everyone wants one or wants it. But that's not always the case sometimes. So sometimes I'm guessing from what I'm hearing from you is some of these questions might not be that comfortable. Were there times going through the process that you were just like not comfortable with the questions that you were asked or had to go deep on?
Oh, since day one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But now I'm actually very comfortable with it. So it's great. I can talk about it. I talk about it, hopefully, with some education behind my answers. And, I think that's with anything that we do in life. When we want to grow, we're always going to step outside of the comfort zone until our comfort zone gets that much bigger. So, yeah.
And you mentioned that in one of our past episodes, we called it Thinking Outside the Box episode. I think it might have been last Aviation Month. And it was so pertinent because I think that's the point of expansion and growth for all human beings, is that, okay, things are getting too comfortable. What can you do to expand your box a little bit or think outside the box a little bit? Now, you're doing another thing that's really outside the box, and you mentioned it briefly in the intro, which is now you're doing commercial flying. And share a little bit about that transition for our audience, how that came about for you.
Sure. Well, I am, in my 30s, and I've got 2,000 hours, and I love flying. And as you and I have talked about in past episodes, I'm all about expanding my comfort zone to make it as big as possible. And so in the flying, you figure if you're ferrying an airplane over to Asia, and I just did this past week, spend 18 hours in one small aircraft from California to Hawaii, which was by far the longest flight I've ever done. But that is something that I'm now comfortable with. I now can actually do that and not, I still will get a little nervous, of course. If you don't, then you probably don't want to be taking ferry trips anymore. But I feel very comfortable with the operation. So I was asking myself, well, what type of flying could I expand into to really make me a better pilot? And with what the regionals are doing right now, with what the airline industry is doing in order to attract people, it's an opportunity that I really advocate not passing up. And the regionals right now, with their no contract, signing bonuses, they're taking care of your ATP, they're taking care of your type ratings, and they're employing you right off the bat. And it's very quick, great, time to upgrade to a captain, all these different things that are happening. It hasn't been seen like that in the past 10 years. And I think even in AOPA, in the magazine this past month, they had a big article about the change in the industry and how the regionals are trying to attract more pilots. And I'm sitting at 2,000 hours right now. So for the past 500 hours, which has been a couple of years, I could have gone to the regionals, but just really wasn't it wasn't appealing to me. The whole idea of a crash pad and like sleeping in some hotel every other night, missing all your holidays and not getting paid, pennies and, all of that just really didn't seem like a fun day. So I never wanted to do it. But now that they're offering so many things, and I've, kind of played around and asked some of the originals, done some interviews with some of them, been offered jobs. It's amazing what the demand is. So I went for it. I joined a small Caribbean regional, Seaborne Airlines, and I'm flying. I just got type rated in the Saab 340, which I am super excited about. I didn't realize how difficult of an airplane that is. And jets are like way easier than this turboprop, this Saab. But that aside, I got my type rating, I got my ATP, and I'm going to be flying with them probably in about a month.
Congratulations. And I know we talked a little bit about this before the interview. There's a lot of GA pilots who listen into our Aviation Month, and they might not be familiar. What is the real differences between switching or transitioning to a commercial pilot life? What is the differences?
Well, when I'm actually working as a commercial pilot, I'll definitely tell you, but I will tell you that even in the training environment, it's amazing. When as a GA pilot, it's you and the aircraft and you're taking your friends and family, and every now and then you have another buddy who's a pilot who you go flying with. But it's pretty much you, a checklist, and the aircraft. And it's a love affair that you have with this machine that you're manipulating and that you're just having so much fun with in the air. In the commercial world, however, you could be paired up with a captain or an FO, a different one, every month. And so personalities vary. Your crew resource management has to be so spot on and so much more like a computer program, very much if this, then that. There's no thinking emotionally or anything, it's all very systemized. It's very systematic. It's very, if this happens, then this happens. And you do your part and they do their part. And together the flight is done successfully and safely. So it's a very, very different environment that even during training, I was surprised to see.
And it must, I would think, take a lot of getting used to because you're really on your own. And actually, I think some of the CRM and stuff that you get from that training could benefit any pilot, even if you're a general aviation pilot, because sometimes I think we could add more structure to the flying to make us safer as pilots in general. Yeah. Now, you mentioned something else very important, and that is personalities. And I know that plays a part in any of our jobs that we have, or even the business that you run. You have people you hire, different personalities you work with. But in the cockpit, it's a very small space, and now you've got to work with different people. You have passengers. Tell us a little bit about, the differences between, because this is life and death. So did you experience a little bit of that? Is that a little different than operating, say, in your business and having to deal with personalities there on the ground?
Well, with personality, like with the watch company, with everything that we do, we have personalities that we work around. And, but when it's something like my company, you really can kind of work very easily within all the variety of personalities. And honestly, if there's a personality that you and them just clash for whatever reason, there's, not everybody in the world is going to like me. I'm not going to like everybody in the world. It's just how it is. But I can always step away from them and I can give my business to someone else. So that's really easy to do. But when you're in the cockpit and you have everyone from dispatch to the flight attendant, to the passengers, to the pilot sitting next to you, you all have to work together. And you can't just say, oh, well, I don't want to fly with this person this month. I need to fly with that person. I mean, there's always an extreme situation, but that really isn't how you guys work. And if there's something that happens during a flight, I know a guy who was telling us a story of a previous airline that he'd worked with, and he called a limitation out on the captain. He was the FO, and he's like, we can't do that. There's a limitation on this, whatever it was. And the captain just fought him tooth and nail. And he had to get out the flying manual and read him verbatim what it said. And that was when the captain finally, went through and did what was needed to do. The rest of the flight, they did not speak other than what was necessary for the flight. And that can happen in any situation, but it's rare that you still have to sit with that person for so long and even potentially fly with that person the following day or the following week or following month. So most everybody is absolutely wonderful, but I've never come across so many different kinds of personalities between, all the 5 hazardous attitudes that we learn about in flying. You remember those? You see that. And even I'm probably at risk of giving those as well. It's something that we all do. But I mean, from the guy that just has bragged about every airline that he's ever flown in and how he's now coming in and he's going to compare the Saab to all the other airplanes that he's flown. That was a very big struggle for me for training, because I'd never flown any other types of airplanes like it. So I'm now remembering things that he's talking about, but from the other airplanes he's flown, to the most humble farm guy who, just knows machines inside and out. And even though he's lower time than I am, he's just so incredibly sharing and giving with trying to help me understand the mechanical side, which is definitely probably my weakest side of aviation, is understanding systems. And then you have, everybody else in between. I mean, there were just so many different personalities that I got to spend a large amount of time. I spent 2 months with them training. So it was really cool. It was really cool to see, and it definitely taught me a lot about how to work with people.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And what I'm thinking that makes corporate flying or commercial flying that much safer is the structure. But what is really also nice to see that used to exist big time in the cockpit was that the captain was always right. And thank God, due to changes in the cockpit and commercial flying, that now you can, if there's a problem, challenge the captain if you see it's not correct or whatever, like the FO that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And through all of your transition and training, I'm sure there was key lessons that really stuck out for you. Were there any that stuck out for you that you could apply to your business and life going forward?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, there's so many. I've always believed that if you go through an entire day and you have to do one of two things in order to make it a successful day. Either one, you impart knowledge on somebody, or somebody imparts knowledge on you. And I'd have to say that happened every single day during training. So I hope I took away a small nugget each day. I know I did. And yeah, I mean, it was fun. I'm looking forward to the next type rating that I'm getting, just so that I can experience that again. The amount of stress was something I wasn't a fan of, though. I'll say that I could simmer down on the stress level.
Yeah, and is the stress level due to the testing in the sim? What causes the greatest stress as far as training?
Well, the airline industry is such that when you are training, if you do fail out of any part of the training, which at most airlines you have written tests, and then you have the simulator test. And the simulator test is usually the type rating ride. So all the written tests ahead of that are for systems, are for flows and call outs, and the operations of the airline, things like that. If you didn't pass any of the written tests before you got to the sim, well, if you didn't pass any of the tests, actually, then it went on what's known as a PREA report. And a PREA report follows you for the rest of your aviation career. So if I had failed on any of the tests, and usually the tests are not rated at 70% like we had in school, they're rated at 80 or 90%. So even some airlines I've heard, it's below, if you get anything below a 90, you failed. That's considered a fail. So that can put a lot of stress on you. You don't just have to pass, you got to really know the stuff. Because if you don't, then it goes on your PREA report. And in the future, if you ever wanted to apply at Delta, American, one of the majors, or even just another smaller airline, they can pull up your PREA report and see where you failed. So I didn't want that to happen. And that just added the amount of stress. So I pretty much told my family that if anybody died, if any crazy things happened, to just wait until I was done with training to tell me, because I just could not focus on anything.
Well, I know you passed with flying colors, right?
I don't know if it was with flying colors, but I did pass, and I passed all the tests, and I passed them with a good margin. So I was satisfied.
Fabulous. Well, what's on the horizon for your company in the next year?
Well, with the 3 watches right now that we have introduced, so Elise just came out at the beginning of the month in October. Marina came out, the new dive watch came out last June, which was part of our very successful Kickstarter from last year. And then Catherine, our newest aviation watch with the patent pending ATIS bezel, came out in February. All of those are being heavily promoted over the next year. You know, we won't be introducing any more new watch styles. We're working on some new watch styles, but we won't be introducing them in the next year. We're really showcasing these 3 styles. And so far, it's been incredibly successful because initially, Jackie and Amelia and the first version of Elise were just offered in very basic colors, silver and gold. And there was a little bit of pink and green and white and black and things like that. Now, though, we have rose gold, bronze watches, sapphire blue watches, pink, purple, red, green, yellow, blue, every color of the rainbow for the dive line is offered. All the bands are now interchangeable. And that's going to be something that's going to be standard equipment for any future Abingdon watch. And it's also going to become standard on the Jackie and the Amelia. Those are being redesigned in order to have interchangeable bands. And what I mean by that is like absolutely 100% no tools necessary. You just remove it with your finger. Metal band, leather band, silicone band, cloth band, it does not matter. They'll all work with each other. You can take a Catherine band and put it on a Jackie, or an Amelia band and put it on a Marina. They'll all work. And so you can really customize your watch, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And with all the different color choices, you know, we've had a huge request for purple watches. And now we have purple watches, and I know that's your favorite color. So so it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is. And you also did add some pieces to your jewelry line as well.
We did not add any pieces, but we are we're actually heavily discounting it right now for the holiday season because we're going to be discontinuing the jewelry. And the reason for that is so that we can really focus on the watch line. And the watches are what everybody really loves. And the jewelry has just been absolutely stunning. And I love the fact that we introduced it. But right now, if you want some solid gold jewelry in paper airplane style, there's only a few pieces left. We don't expect to have them through the rest of the holiday. Get them now before they're gone because we won't be making them anymore. All
right. So everyone, where can they get your watches, your jewelry, and all that good stuff and find out more about you guys?
www.theabingdonco.com. That's Tango Hotel Echo, Alpha Bravo, India November Golf, Delta Oscar November, Charlie Oscar.com.
I love it when you say it with aviation fanatics.
Oh, girl. Makes it so much easier.
It does, especially when you write it out. What was that again? Well, I want to thank you again for coming back to Savvy Central Radio and sharing your wisdom and gifts today, Abingdon.
Absolutely. Anytime. I love catching up with you, and you have amazing interviews. So I'm always happy to be a part of it.
Oh, well, thank you, Abingdon, and have an awesome day.
You as well. Bye.
Every year, City Santa answers letters from children in shelters for victims of domestic violence and families in crisis in and around New York City. These letters are from children whose requests differ from the usual red wagons and bicycles to simply the basic needs for food, clothing, shoes, and blankets. Using the donations received, City Santa volunteers purchase these necessities, wrap them, fill individual stockings, and deliver them to every family. This all-volunteer organization has been helping New Yorkers since 2001. For more information, please go to citysanta.org or call 212-614-3239.
Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.
Join our mailing list today by texting Savvy Radio to find out about upcoming guests and events and receive a free gift, how podcasting can help increase sales and influence in your business.